Have you guys noticed how Indonesia and Turkey are the two main countries being talked about for a policing Gaza role? I think this is a lot more significant than folks let on. Of course, Egypt and Pakistan are also a part of this conversation, but neither of those are really like fully sovereign countries. And they're always sort of part of this conversation, and they're just there because they always have been. And they're a lot like the Gulf monarchies that are just going to shy away from it because it's a little too politically fraught or a little bit too difficult. Indonesia, Turkey, rich, powerful countries with real militaries who are considering stepping up in a really big way. I've been talking about this for years. I had a very well-received video, gosh, it was about a decade back, at least 5, 6 years ago, talking about how Indonesia and Turkey were the inevitable leaders of the Muslim world. Because they're rich, they're independent, they have their own militaries, they are sovereign countries in a way that nobody in the Middle East is allowed to be. This is most obviously the case with Donald Trump, but it's also the case with like the Biden administration and most US and European media, is that we're living in this fantasy world where a couple garrison Gulf monarchies, these gross backward places that are also tax havens, so they've managed to become wealthy and they have a lot of oil resources, that somehow like the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, countries like Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates or Bahrain or Qatar, or like somehow these countries are like the leaders of the Muslim world or the Arab world, or like they're not real places. They are like U.S. military bases, U.S. tax fraud bases. Like they're not real places. And it's just if you pay attention, if you look around the conversations of what like is actually happening, who's actually having real conversations, who can contribute real things, Turkey and Indonesia are doing a lot more and are much more serious countries than any of the countries, historic powers like Egypt or Pakistan, or completely fraudulent powers like the Gulf monarchies that the U.S. media and the U.S. government prefers to talk about. Indonesia and Turkey, they are on the rise, whether or not this Trump-Gaza thing happens at all, which seems very unlikely. But just how real and how intimidating it is to Israel and the United States that these countries are like, yeah, sure, we can do that. It's a sign of a different, newer, coming world.